What's up, Degroote? Welcome to your weekly NBA Bizcast, where we provide you with the information that you need to know. We provide weekly highlights in tech, business, sports, and any other interesting stories we come across. Listen while you work, study, drive, or on your break. Today's Thursday, May 9th, And before we get going, we'd like to welcome you back to the new school semester, and we'd also like to introduce our newest member to the team, Alex Pock. Do you want to just say hi?
Hi, everybody. My name is Alex Pocknick. Those of you who know me have probably run into me in some less than desirable swimwear outfits, and those of you who don't, you should just be happy I'm on radio. So I'm happy to be a part of the team, and I can't wait to get started.
Welcome aboard. So let's just get going and right over to G with some international news.
Welcome back, everyone. How's it going? On the international scale, as we all know, a building collapsed last week. 950 people died. Brand names such as Joe Fresh were associated with this. Their garments were being produced in these factories. Today, unfortunately, another 8 people died in a fire. Another garment factory burnt down. And this is something that is concerning. And it's, who do we really blame for this? Is it the government in Bangladesh? Is it the businesses that own the factory? Or is it the consumer here in the Western world that's actually demanding cheaper clothes? So I'd like to take your views on this.
The first question I kind of have is, are these factories wholly owned? Like, is this going to be a factory that only makes one brand, or is it a bunch of clothing makers who said, we all want low price clothing to fill this segment, and we're going to split on this factory? Is there one singular person that owns any of these factories?
So the factory that was owned in Bangladesh that actually collapsed was a private factory. So this guy owns it, operates it, but it was actually illegally built. And that's why it collapsed. So it wasn't structurally sound.
So there weren't the checks in place that we might have in Canada to make our buildings safe.
Exactly, and this is where things such as corruption come in, especially in countries like India and Bangladesh, in some parts of Africa and such, where there's so much corruption, people don't have the right policies and procedures in place, they don't have the right check marks, and next thing you know, people are dying for it. But then at the same time, it's like you have companies such as Joe Fresh that should ensure that the people they're working with are, up to par and up to standard.
I think it's hard to blame. For me, it's hard to blame Joe Fresh. At the same time, they're not 100% blameless, because you wouldn't go into a factory and have to make your clothes unless you've actually been there. So the second you were there and you saw what it was like, and you decided that was still okay, you've decided to accept a significant portion of that blame, in my opinion. I don't understand why this must have been happening before, but how come what's the spark that got it to become televised and people start actually covering it? I wonder what it is that's brought it up into our attention. Because I feel like they've basically been exploiting labor for years. Not exploiting, they've been using cheaper labor in these places for years, and I'm sure this can't be the first time people have gotten hurt, but all of a sudden we're kind of finding out about it.
I really think it was the 950 people that died. That's a huge number, almost 1,000. To compare, there was a bombing where 4 or 5 people died, and people went crazy over it. So, 950 people died. I'm sure it's going to create some waves, right?
Has there been any sanctions so far?
In fact, the Bangladesh government has actually closed 16 factories in the last week as a result of this.
So it was almost an unfortunate necessary, right? This terrible event had to happen almost to force some sort of action going forward. It's pretty tragic.
The problem, though, in having emergency closures on a lot of these factories is I think you're looking at a lot of countries that have emerging economies. You got to crawl before you walk and walk before you run. It would be unrealistic to suggest that these countries, their infrastructure automatically is going to support jobs that we're used to in our society. And I'm not saying that these conditions are ideal, but the ideal state would be to have progression from lower wage employment and lower wage factories, and then move up to a situation where it's a little more progressive, where wages and compensation packages are more progressive. I don't know if closing all of these places all of a sudden, I understand if there's safety concerns that need to be addressed, you need to do that before you have another tragedy. But it'd be interesting to see the fallout, economically speaking, going forward, if this is going to be a very...
I didn't really think about it as far as taking away from them beforehand. So it's only just kind of now that I thought about it from your perspective. Because if you're an employee of someone like this, it's not because it's your summer job. Like, you're not doing it to buy yourself a PlayStation. So if I all of a sudden say to people employed at 16 factories, oh, sorry, you don't have jobs because I feel bad about poor planning earlier, it's not going to be a fair, yeah, you're right, it's not a fair way to kind of deal with these problems.
Interesting points, guys. So why don't we move on to our next topic and head over to Tune Day with Tech.
So today I kind of wanted to talk about Google Glass. I'm almost 100% sure everyone has seen some posts somewhere on Twitter or Facebook about it. They had the Go Glass promo, which I think was kind of a sham, but we can discuss that in a second. But basically, when they first launched it and introduced this product, they had a contest. You told them what you could do with it and how you were going to market it, and they would give you one of the first 250 people who were going to get samples to try out and basically be beta testers. Almost everyone ended up being a celebrity. Big name celebrities, athletes, some politicians. It was basically, you had to have like 50,000 Twitter followers or be a celebrity. There were 2 or 3 normies that they put in there who just, like one guy I think has like 12 followers and doesn't really tweet, but he tweeted that. So they did like sprinkle 1 or 2, 3 people normal in there to make it seem fair. But basically, for the gist, if you don't know what it is, it's a set of glasses frames with a lens, interchangeable lenses for glasses and or for sunglasses. The glasses lenses aren't available yet, it's just the sunglass ones. And then the ones without the glass lenses is just a little cube in front of the glasses. It runs smartphone hardware, so dual core processor. It's got an 8 megapixel camera in it. Basically, anything you find in an iPhone or a Galaxy, whatever the top phone is, it's baked all into the lens and the handles of the glasses, and then you can use it to execute basic Google functions. So Google Search, Google Maps, a little bit of their web functionality, camera, and video.
I think it's pretty cool. I remember watching the video when it came out like a few months ago. I found myself getting sucked in, going like, oh my god, now I can be an acrobat, now I can go skydiving. I was like, wait, I literally never do any of those things, and I probably never will now that I have Google Glass. Cool concept, not for me. I would probably never spend my money on it.
So, question, what's the UI like? So, is everything controlled by eye movements or what?
It's mostly voice activated, actually. You do see, the little cube does show you, it's basically a tiny little screen, but with the angle it's at, it looks fine from your eye. But it'll show you like an arrow pointing left. For directions, it'll show you small arrows, or it'll show you small notifications or lights. But as far as I know, there's not really a whole bunch of...
I think it's more voice recognition,
yeah,
isn't it?
Voice recognition, voice activated. I think it's just lights, and I think there's a little arrow shape that comes up, but I think it's just lights and arrows.
It's kind of like you're playing a video game. In the bottom right corner of your screen, you'll see like a map. I think that's kind of the concept they're trying to...
Heads-up display, basically.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you guys saw this video. I think we saw it in marketing last week. It was this reporter who had the Google Glass on, and he was playing basketball. And you just kind of followed him along, dribbling. Honestly, it looked just like a helmet cam. Like it wasn't that fun to watch. It didn't seem like it was a big deal. To me, I don't know if it would be something I'd want to purchase.
To that point, though, I saw a video where a guy played a men's league rec hockey league game, and he was wearing I'm assuming he was wearing the hardware, and they showed a video of it. And if it's more practical to have professional athletes have this technology in their, instead of having a massive helmet cam, it'd be pretty interesting if you could have that as an application in sports broadcasts. I think that would be pretty neat. But again, I don't know how practical that is. I thought it was a pretty cool video.
Yeah, that'd be way better than mic'd up. Like, you have like your favorite player in the NFL, and you're just watching his helmet as he goes through and just creams somebody.
Can you imagine if you had that camera technology during Sanchez's butt fumble in the Jets game as he runs into a massive 330-pound rear end? I think that would be the most fascinating video footage in sports history.
Like, that's the kind of thing that I think it's really going to drive. But the other concern I kind of had about it is privacy. How do you know when I'm recording you? How do you know when I'm taking a picture of you? And how do you know when I'm getting any kind of information or audio or anything? Because I think it has a little audio bit for your ear. How do you know what I'm doing at all times?
Well, on that topic, actually, I read a couple months ago that a few bars in America, specifically one in Arizona, actually banned the Google Glasses before they even came out because of the privacy issue. They just didn't want their patrons coming in and taking pictures and videos of each other. Just altogether banned.
And so, what do you call it? Immediately, Caesar's Palace came out immediately and said, you cannot use those in our casinos at any time. It's okay to wear them if you're a casino guest, and during your trip, once you enter the floor area of the table games, you immediately have to take them off. I still think there's going to be people who are going to learn to disguise them, though, because it's going to be a while till
once the lenses appear, I guess.
Yeah,
right?
once you start making lens versions, this is my prescription. I need these to see. That's unfair. And now I'm recording every hand I play at the blackjack table, every hand I play at the poker table, and trying to use that to my advantage.
Start to embed it within the lens too. You wouldn't even be able to tell.
Yeah.
I suppose it's just the prototype model for now, right? Okay, well, let's move on to our next topic. So, have you guys heard of Bitcoin before?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Am I the only person that hasn't heard of Bitcoin?
No, I think
Jeez, looks pretty perplexed.
I'm pretty lost right now.
No, I'm well aware of the Bitcoin
Okay.
drama.
So, for those of you who don't know what it is, in essence, it's internet currency. It's not affiliated with any central bank or any country. It's just online money. There's nothing tangible or concrete about it. It's just an idea, concept floating around on the internet. What do you use it for? For the most part, in theory, you can use it to buy anything. Whoever accepts Bitcoin, you can trade it for. You can take your Canadian dollar, you buy Bitcoin, and then use your Bitcoin to buy electronics or pizza, things on eBay. So it's really whoever buys into it that you can make purchases for. So it's a pretty neat concept. A Canadian could buy something in China and not have to pay the banks conversion fees to convert their money. So it's an interesting idea. Where the problem comes around is there's a lot of black market and mob activity that's coming out of it because Bitcoin is untraceable. So I can go online, buy stolen goods, buy drugs, any illegal good that I want, completely anonymously, give money to that guy or person on the other end, get my good. Mobs can take money, launder it into the Bitcoin system, buy Bitcoin, resell that Bitcoin, and get real cash on the other end. So the real winners in this case are no longer consumers. It's really the people who divulge in black market activity.
The second you get anything, someone has to use it for a crime. Like, I could invent a comfortable pillow, and someone would use it to murder people. Like, there's just, all you ever do is turn good. This sounds like a great way to have international business, and people are like, wait, we should use this for international crime instead.
Yeah.
Like, so you tell me it's basically made money laundering, like, 5,000 times easier.
Yeah, a lot easier.
I just think it's funny that programmers once again figured they could do something better than international monetary policymakers could. And yet, there were some major problems they didn't consider. The market crash was actually pretty funny not funny, but it was interesting to see they've had a couple recent very dramatic dips in their market value trading, and it's been a complete roller coaster, I think, for at least the last month.
Yeah, when I first heard about it was maybe, say, 2 or 3 months ago, and I heard about it because there was a guy in Alberta who's trying to sell his house for Bitcoin, like, say, 200,000 Bitcoin or whatever amount. And pretty much from that point forward, every news, any website that I was going to was talking about Bitcoin, and there was all this excitement behind it. It was rallying up to, like, $200 when less than a year ago it was trading at, like, somewhere between like $3 and $20 for one Bitcoin, and now it suddenly inflated to over $200 for one Bitcoin, which is insane. And then a couple days later, it's dropped down to like $60. So there's so much volatility behind this. It's incredible.
Millionaire today, homeless tomorrow.
Yeah. So then there raises that point. How do you become a millionaire off of something that doesn't really exist? How does Bitcoin come into existence? So you download software off the internet. You use processing power on your computer that basically acts as it runs the accounting ledger for different Bitcoin transactions. So Tunde G, if you guys make a transaction, my computer runs it and records that transaction, and over a certain period of time after my computer's done a certain amount of work, I get rewarded with a Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is created really from nothing. So there's nothing behind Bitcoin at all, but people are flocking to it. And
so my question is, does government step in with any sort of regulation or policy? Because, I mean, they monitor banks and...
What can you do, though? It's the internet.
It's not technically illegal, right? Technically, you are exchanging your money for a product, because Bitcoin is considered a product.
It's technically a product, yep.
And then you're later reselling that product. There's nothing currently inherently illegal about it. I'm sure they will adjust legal precedent, but it doesn't seem like it's currently anything illegal.
Yeah, and I think a lot of governments right now don't know what to do. They don't know how to react to it. Because if it, I'd be surprised if it does, but if it does take off, say suddenly tomorrow, everyone stops using Canadian, stops using US dollars, and switches to Bitcoin, this could crash whole economies, right? If people aren't spending Canadian dollars, that screws up the Central Bank of Canada. So it has huge negative, drastic impacts. I don't see it taking off. I think it will probably stick around and people will continue to use it, but
I think we should have a contingency plan ready, though, just in case. Tunde, I think no more free What's Up Degroote podcasts. You want a subscription, $19.99 Bitcoins for 12-month subscription. I think that's the way to go. I'm convinced this is the future for us.
yeah, if you want to give up your Bitcoin, we will take it from you.
Is there a physical coin, though? Let's double check. It's just digital. There's no...
Pure digital. Your wallet is digital. It's just all recorded on your computer. From what I've read from like the blog posts in the communities, it sounds like a lot of 14-year-old boys who are, Bitcoin's the future, and I don't know. Do you know what? There's a great chance to make money off it. When I first saw it, it was trading at $70. If I bought it then and sold it a week later at $200, like, look how much money I would have made in a week, right? You can't even do that in a really strong stock market right now. But there's so much volatility, it's just too scary for me to ever throw my money behind.
I find it so difficult as a business to actually buy into something like this. I would never do it. There's just warning signs all over it, though. If I was a business owner, that's a no-no for me.
It's tough. I think the one thing you have to remember, though, for people in online business, like if I'm online and I'm just, like for instance, like Alex said, if we were only just selling What's Up Degroote, we couldn't afford to turn away customers because we don't trust Bitcoin. Like anything that's going to get us some possible value, you're going to take. And especially, look at some, not all, but some online businesses that are service-based or subscription-based, they have the same cost no matter what. If I get a Bitcoin, if I get nothing, I still put in that same amount of time. There's no physical space being taken up. There's no physical product. So you take whatever it is you can get, whatever resources. If someone offers you free advertising or marketing, whatever it is you take. So I can see some small, and that's why he's basically saying internet community businesses taking this up. And I can understand why, because I don't say desperate, but it makes more sense for them.
Yeah, I think there's the people who are going to be making money off of this are not the guys who are buying Bitcoin and holding it and waiting for it to appreciate in value. It's the guys who are acting as the exchanges. You come to my website, I have Bitcoin for sale, or even I act as an exchange where I'll help buyers and sellers sync up, or websites that are more like an eBay where they just host goods and then they take a commission. Those are the guys who are probably going to come out okay on the other end. It's the people who are buying and holding the Bitcoins itself who I think they're in trouble.
Like all those people who stockpiled Iraqi dollars after the invasion. They're just waiting. I still believe.
All right, well, that being said, let's move on to Ari and Pop with sports.
Okay, well, as we all know, Game 4 of the Leafs Bruins took place last night. For those who don't know, I'm actually not the biggest hockey fan, but I was lucky enough to have the privilege of going to last night's game. It was my first ever playoff game, and I just want to say, wow, it was unbelievable. Honestly, I was at the edge of my seat the entire game. I was up in the greens. Everybody was cheering almost consistently the entire game. Back and forth. Obviously, the Leafs took a 2-0 lead for first period. Bruins came back, throughout the game, just pure pandemonium. I got a chance to sneak down into the golds, and one thing I want to point out is that people like to say, people sitting in the golds are generally suits. They generally aren't passionate about the game, but I want to tell you that's wrong. I mean, at least based on yesterday's playoff game, people were standing up, people were cheering. It's nice to see Toronto fans of all types really just enjoying the game and really being passionate about it. And I got to say that I think from this one experience yesterday, I might have to take up hockey as another sport that I follow. And yeah,
there is nothing better, in my opinion, than playoff overtime hockey. Last night was an incredible example of that. 3 games actually went to OT. Anaheim beat Detroit in OT to take a 3-2 series lead. And the Kings walked into St. Louis and won in OT to take a 3-2 series lead in their series. But there's nothing that rivals that excitement. It's sudden death, and there's a reason they call it sudden death. If you score, you feel elated. If you get scored on, you feel like you're about to die. And I'm going to second the comment of Ari's saying that the atmosphere is incredible. I always said the Toronto fan base gets an unfair knock. When they're given a product that's worth watching, they come out and they get excited. What other market can you find after 9 years without playoffs? They have almost 10,000 people outside the building watching on big screens. It's a pretty wild atmosphere right now.
So I've never been to a Leafs game. I've been to the Raptors a couple times. I don't know how far back is green or gold or red or any of these colors. Like,
I think green's the nosebleed.
Green's the nosebleeds. I mean, but you get a good vision of the...
Yeah, the ACC isn't crazy huge. It seems like a very well-built...
It's no soccer stadium.
I've gone to a lot of NHL games, and I've seen about a third of the rinks right now that are in use. And I would say the ACC, probably for sight lines and game experiences, probably the best rink that I've ever gone to. It's a really well-built facility.
You're not even a Leafs fan, right?
I'm not.
So you don't even have to be biased.
People in this podcast will find out very quickly I'm a miserable diehard Flames fan. Thank you very much, Mom and Dad, for popping me out in Calgary. But the rest of my family bleed blue, so I had to be sympathetic to the Leafs growing up. But it's a great building, and I will be going tomorrow night, Game 5 in Boston. Boston, as the locals call it.
Boston.
Picked up tickets. I might see the final game of the Leafs season, and hopefully I'm still alive to talk about it on the next podcast, too.
So as far as playoffs go, can you break down the matchups? You had 3 matchups last night. What are the chances of all those teams who lost being eliminated, like, kind of just back-to-back? Because I put a couple people at 3-2, right? Or 3-1.
Yeah, so Toronto's down 3-1, and I think that series is probably done. They have to go back to Boston tomorrow night, the game that I'll be at. Boston, realistically, they're a team that probably should go deep. They were in the lead in the division. They were looking at the 2nd seed until they ran into scheduling hell after the aftermath of the unfortunate incidents at the Marathon. But they're a deep team. Anything less than a Stanley Cup is a failure for them this season. I would expect them to finish off the series. The other 2 series are a little more interesting. Anaheim was the one team in the West where a lot of people thought they might be ripe for an upset. They're up 3-2 now, but they've got to go back to Detroit and play Game 6 at the Joe. Detroit's not out of that series. And the best series by far, if anybody is watching, St. Louis, LA has been a complete throwback to old school hockey. It has been a blast. Every game has been decided by 1 goal. Either of those teams will be a cup contender if they get out of this round without too many injuries. It's been a complete war of attrition. But it's been back and forth. 2 of the deepest teams in the entire league, not just the West. I have a feeling that one's going 7. I got a feeling St. Louis might pull out a big road win in Game 6 and bring it back home. If anybody's got free time, that is the series to watch.
So I've seen a couple of those games, and it's been nice because it hasn't really required me to stay up till 2 in the morning, which is the main reason most sports, like especially in Ontario or East Coast, bias is because no one likes staying up late. Or if they do like staying up late, they're not watching hockey. But that's a different topic. That game, I saw the first game of that series. I saw the second game of that series, and you really just saw like the bitterness from St. Louis getting swept last year. And they were hitting everything that moved, and guys were, after every whistle was like this free opportunity to cross-check someone or, face wash someone. It was the great first couple games, but I actually haven't seen the last 3 in a row, which apparently means I forgot that the entire series turned around in 3 games. Because that was 2-0.
It was
right?
2-0 Blues, and they looked like, I wouldn't say in complete control, but 2-0 is typically a stranglehold in that sport. And LA, though, is just a very deep team. They've been there before. It's pretty much the exact same core of the team that won the Cup last year. Every game is just, it's been an absolute war. You see it a lot in playoff hockey. The first couple games, you try to get under your opponent's skin. It really gets very physical. And then as the games go on throughout the series, you got to focus a little more on winning. It's almost like the first 2 games, not necessarily a throwaway, but you deal in a different currency. You're trying to inflict some punishment. And then that kind of goes on the back burner as the series goes on. But it's been a lot of fun. I'm not really following the NBA playoffs too much. I know Ari's following the NBA playoffs. What do we got going on that front?
Well, I was at the hockey game last night, but I could tell you that the Heat blew out the Bulls yesterday, kind of asserting their dominance to get it to 1-1 in the series. The Golden State Warriors pulled out the upset in San Antonio, beating them last night. Golden State's actually a team to watch. I think during the regular season, you would assume they're one of the weaker teams in the Western Conference, but the emergence of Steph Curry in the first round, Klay Thompson, bringing Carl Landry off the bench when David Lee went down. They're a very, very well-rounded team, and I think they could do some damage I don't know if they're going to win the series, but it'll definitely be a good one to watch.
Every time I see Curry, it looks like his old man Dell. Popping up threes.
Eventually, look at that little gray streak.
There's no chance of Miami losing, right? Like LeBron's got this, right?
Right. I think what it comes down to is LeBron needs to be a little more selfish. I think what's so amazing about him is that he's gotten better each season, and not necessarily by shooting the ball, it's by passing, by getting rebounds, by doing the little things. But I think now's the time. I think the Bulls have given them a little bit of trouble during the season. Now's the time to really kind of be selfish in the fourth quarter. Show that he's clutch and really perform. I hear he might be covering Nate Robinson, who's been a beast this playoffs. 5'9" versus 6'8", Mac Truck. It's going to be interesting to watch. So that's another series you guys should check out.
How much different would that series be if Derrick Rose came back? Would it make that much of a difference? Or?
I don't know. I don't know. I would say that. I think it was last year. Derrick Rose. They met in the playoffs last year, and he pulled off the win. Right now, like Tibbs, the coach for the Bulls, he has him playing really well. He's a really good defensive-minded coach, and I think with guys like Joakim Noah and Boozer playing amazing, I think they perform just as well.
All right, that's great, guys. I think that's probably all the time we have for this week. So thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed the show. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at What's Up Degroote and like us on Facebook. If you want to contact us directly, email whatsupdegroote@gmail.com with any questions or comments you have. And this is What's Up Degroote signing off to go apply for hundreds of jobs we will probably never get an interview for.
All the jobs.